4 men attack Billionaire at restaurant and froze seeing who the black teen really was. It began on what seemed like an ordinary evening inside one of the city's most exclusive dining halls. A place draped in gold curtains, crystal chandeliers, and the kind of quiet luxury that only the wealthiest could afford. Tables were set with fine china and polished silver, and servers glided silently between courses. At the center of this glamorous world sat a billionaire, a man who commanded power with every step he took, and across from him, a well-dressed woman who seemed perfectly at ease in his orbit. But what captured the attention of the room was not their wealth or presence. It was the boy seated beside them. A young black teenager, no older than 13, dressed neatly in a tailored vest and shirt. His calmness, his very presence, unsettled those who thought they understood who belonged in such a room and who didn't. The restaurant buzzed softly with whispers. To some, the boy seemed out of place among the crystal and caviar. To others, his quiet dignity made him stand out even more sharply, like a single note in an otherwise rehearsed symphony of wealth and privilege. His eyes, wide yet watchful, scanned the room with curiosity, unaware that his very existence here was challenging the unspoken boundaries set by society. But before anyone could reflect on what his presence meant, the atmosphere shifted violently. The heavy wooden doors burst open, and in stormed 4 masked men dressed in black, guns drawn. Gasps filled the room as diners froze mid-bite, their polished forks clattering against plates. Fear spread like wildfire. These men were not there by accident. They had come for something or perhaps someone. The billionaire straightened in his seat, his calm expression belying the danger that now surrounded them. But when the intruder's eyes locked on the boy, the room felt as though it stopped breathing. The attackers aimed their weapons not just at the billionaire, but at the teenager. The boy instinctively raised his hands, palms trembling as he stood frozen in fear. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his heart pounding so loudly it seemed to echo in his ears. Diners ducked behind tables, but many peeked through gaps in tablecloths, their wide eyes reflecting both terror and confusion. Why was this child, this boy, suddenly the center of attention in an armed attack? The woman at the table turned in shock toward the boy, her lips parting as though to speak, but no sound escaped her. The billionaire's face, however, remained carved in stone, his jaw tight and his eyes never leaving his son. Yes, his son, the boy that society whispered about, the child whose very presence unsettled those who believed wealth had a certain color and class attached to it, was not just a guest. He was family. The attackers hesitated. Their guns wavered slightly, not because they feared the boy's strength, but because of what he represented. They had expected to intimidate a billionaire, to shake a man whose wealth shielded him from ordinary dangers. But they had not expected this, a young black heir standing at the center of unimaginable privilege, yet still vulnerable to the very same prejudices and dangers that shadowed so many lives outside these walls. The boy's breathing grew shallow. He could feel every eye in the room pressing down on him, judging him, pitying him, and fearing for him. It was a crushing weight, not just of the moment but of history, generations of being silenced, doubted, or cast aside for nothing more than the color of skin. And here he was, inside a palace of wealth, where even the richest chandeliers could not blind people from their own prejudice. Seconds felt like hours. One attacker pressed his gun closer, the cold steel glinting under the chandelier's glow. The boy's hands shook, but he didn't drop them. His wide eyes locked onto the billionaire's steady gaze, silently asking for strength. And then, slowly, the truth spilled into the room like light breaking through storm clouds. This boy was not a stranger. He was the billionaire's son, adopted, protected, and loved, yet carefully shielded from the public eye. The billionaire had feared the world's reaction, knowing how cruel judgment could be. He had chosen privacy over spectacle, love over headlines. But now there was no hiding. The boy stood in the open, a living testament to everything the world tried to deny, that love and family transcend skin color, and that power is not bound by prejudice. The attackers froze. Their mission was shattered, their confidence undone. They had come for power, for wealth, perhaps even for revenge, but instead, they were confronted with something far greater, the reality of injustice staring back at them through the terrified eyes of a child. The diners, too, sat in stunned silence. All their whispers about who belonged in this golden room crumbled beneath the truth. The billionaire finally rose from his chair, slow and deliberate. His presence filled the room like thunder. He moved to his son's side, placing a firm hand on his trembling shoulder. It was a gesture of protection, but also of defiance. He was telling the world and the attackers before him that this child was not a liability, not an intruder, but his legacy. For a moment, no one moved. The air was thick with tension, every second stretching into eternity. Then the sound of sirens wailed outside. Security forces swarmed the restaurant, guns drawn, orders shouted. The attackers were disarmed, wrestled to the ground, their masks ripped away. The danger had ended as abruptly as it began, but the impact would remain etched in every heart present. The boy lowered his trembling hands slowly, his chest heaving with the weight of everything that had just transpired. He glanced at the diners, their eyes wide, their expressions shaken. For the first time, they saw him not as an outsider, not as a question mark in their world of privilege, but as a child who had stood face to face with both danger and prejudice and survived. The billionaire whispered words only his son could hear, words of comfort, of love, of reassurance. But his gaze swept across the room, daring anyone to forget what they had witnessed. His message was unspoken but clear. True strength was not in wealth, but in standing against injustice, in protecting those who the world tried to push aside. That night, as the restaurant emptied and the broken shards of fear were swept away, the story spread like wildfire. People spoke not just of the attack, but of the revelation. A boy who many had dismissed, who some had judged silently, had shown the world something undeniable. His presence exposed not just the cruelty of armed men, but the prejudice that simmered quietly in gilded rooms. And so the question lingered, heavier than the silence that followed the chaos. When will the world finally stop seeing skin color as a barrier and start seeing humanity for what it truly is?